No one paid attention to the black man in the worn-out prison uniform, quietly stepping into the exercise yard of Rutherford State Penitentiary. The concrete walls were moss-covered, razor wire hung above, and the morning sun lacked the strength to thaw the biting cold that clung to every inmate's soul. But Leon Carter didn't feel the chill. From the day he was sentenced for a crime he didn't commit, his body had learned to endure everything, except injustice. Leon lifted his head, his eyes sweeping across the yard. Inmates clustered in small groups, some laughing with dry detachment, others watching each other with wary glances. In another corner, a gang marked by wolf head tattoos stared at him, eyes sharp like blades. Iron fangs, Leon thought. Predators without a reason. And lately he could feel it. They had marked him. Leon wasn't someone who bowed easily. Before prison, he was a living legend in the Delta Force, where impossible missions were part of the daily grind. In that brutal world, he had learned how to survive, how to stay calm in chaos, and above all, how to read the eyes of those about to strike. A breeze passed by. Leon turned and walked slowly toward the concrete benches near the wall. Sitting down, he closed his eyes, not to rest, but to listen. The whispers, the silent footsteps behind him, the distant sneers, they were all data to him. In his mind, the instincts of a warrior never rested. 3 weeks ago, his name flooded the headlines, "Ex-Special Forces operator convicted for drug possession and trafficking." The news spread like wildfire. The public was outraged, not because he'd been wrongfully sentenced, but because a hero turned out to be a disguised criminal. He had no chance to defend himself. No one cared to listen to the pleas of a convicted man. But Jessica did. Jessica Green, a young defense attorney and once his friend from academy days, was the only one who believed in Leon's innocence. She read through the files, spotted the inconsistencies in witness testimonies, the search reports missing signatures, and above all, she discovered a trail of suspicious transactions linked to a single name: Elliot Foster. Foster was a powerful businessman, the owner of multiple real estate ventures involved in forced acquisitions. One of those acquisitions had been blocked, thanks to Leon, who had helped provide legal counsel for a small residential community just before his arrest. That's where it all began. But to prove it, Jessica needed time. And in the meantime, Leon had to survive a place where everything seemed determined to destroy him. That afternoon in the narrow, musty-smelling cell, a prison guard opened his door. "Carter, you've got a visitor." Leon looked up, face emotionless, but his eyes flickered. He stood, following the guard through hallways that stretched endlessly. Each step echoed like a ticking clock, time slowing with every stride. The visiting room was small, divided by a thick pane of glass. On the other side sat Jessica, hair tied neatly back, eyes bright but filled with concern. When she saw him, she tilted her head slightly, as if trying to measure how much of him had been worn down by time and confinement. "Are you okay?" she asked, her voice low and serious. Leon pressed his lips together, then nodded. "Barely. But Jessica, I feel them getting closer." Jessica tightened her grip on the pen in her hand, her gaze sharpening. "The iron fangs?" He nodded. "I don't know who hired them, but this isn't random. Someone doesn't want me to live long enough for you to prove the truth." Jessica sighed quietly. "I've been going over the case file. There are holes everywhere, from the lab reports to contradictory witness statements. I've also traced a shell company, Haven Enterprises, behind those shady transactions connected to Foster." Leon tilted his head slightly. "Foster's directly involved?" "No direct proof yet, but there are traces. I'm tracking it. The issue is, it'll take time, and I need you to stay alive until then." He chuckled, Not out of humor, but bitterness. Staying alive here isn't easy. Not because I'm scared, because I'm tired. Every day that passes, it feels like I'm being worn down, piece by piece. Jessica placed her hand on the table, her gaze stern. Listen to me, Leon. You've survived Afghanistan's deserts. You've entered a terrorist Dethat NS that no one else dared to approach. Don't let a prison and a bunch of thugs break you. You have to live, not just for yourself, but for all the people the system crushes every day. Leon stared at her for a long moment, then slowly nodded. All right, but I need you to help me with something. What is it? Tonight they'll come for me. I'm sure of it. Watch the time. If I don't walk out of that block within 12 hours, alert the media immediately. Don't trust the prison staff. Jessica looked startled. How do you know? Leon smirked, eyes turning to steel. Because I heard their whispers. They called it the night show. And I'm the main event. That night in the cramped cell, Leon didn't sleep. He tore his bedsheet into long strips, wrapping them around his wrists and elbows as makeshift padding. Beneath the bed, a sharpened toothbrush, his crude weapon, not made to kill but to survive. Footsteps echoed in the hallway. Closer, slower, like they no longer cared to hide. Leon stood up. His eyes didn't flinch. In his mind, a single sentence thundered, Want to bury me? Make sure I don't rise. The cell door swung open with a cold metallic screech, a sound unmistakable in the stillness of the night. 3 figures stood silently in the dimly lit hallway. No words, no signals. They'd done this too many times to need either. Tonight was a cleanup night, and Leon Carter was the target. Inside the cell, Leon was already standing. His arms hung loosely at his sides, left foot slightly shifted to back, a warrior's ready stance. Looks like you knew we were coming, sneered the first man, eyes glinting with cruelty. Didn't need to. I could smell the dogs coming, Leon replied, his voice low and cold as ice. The comeback made the second man clench his fists. I'll show you what a rabid dog looks like. He charged like a starving beast, swinging hard, as if he meant to end the fight with the first blow. Leon sidestepped the attack, bringing his right hand down sharply on the man's wrist. A clean, precise movement, just like in his Special Forces days. The man snarled, staggered, and was immediately met with a sideways kick to the knee that dropped him. The third man didn't wait for his partner to recover. He pulled out a slender blade, the kind often smuggled in during visitation. Leon stepped back half a pace, eyes locked on the steel. Interesting, he muttered. If you want to play for real, let's play for real. From his sleeve, a sharpened toothbrush slid into his hand like a magician's trick. It was the only weapon he had, and one that had saved his life more than 3 times since he'd been locked up with killers. They lunged at each other. In the cramped space, the sound of bone hitting bone, flesh tearing, and muffled groans filled the air. Leon deflected one stab, countering with a diagonal strike into the man's upper arm, drawing a sharp cry of pain. Blood flowed, dark and heavy. This wasn't just a fight. This was survival, or death. The first attacker, though taken down early, was now crawling back to his feet. But instead of rejoining the fight, he backed toward the cell door, pulling a hidden phone from under the mattress. Leon realized it 1 beat too late. "Foster!" the man hissed, tapping rapidly. "The bastard's tougher than the others. Not easy meat." Leon lunged, but the man with the knife intercepted him with a slash to the side. The blade tore through his prison shirt, blood seeping out. But Leon didn't slow. Pain was just the bell ringing louder. He struck hard, knocking the blade aside, then spun and kicked the caller square in the chest. The man flew backward, phone clattering to the floor, shattering. A moment of silence. Only heavy breathing remained. Blood dripped from wounds. His arms, his chin. The air in the cell thickened, as if even the walls held their breath. Leon turned. The two iron fangs writhed on the floor, faces twisted in pain, but their eyes still burned with hate. "We'll be back," one growled. "Foster won't let you live till trial." Leon bent down, picked up what was left of the phone. Just the SIM card. Calmly, he snapped it and crushed it under his boot. "Then let him try," he murmured. The next morning, chaos erupted in the prison. 3 inmates were severely injured and blood spattered all over cell C2. The warden reviewed the files, called in the medical team and internal affairs. But Leon wasn't placed in solitary confinement, no weapon was found, and no one had caught him striking first. The only person allowed to question him was Officer Jones, a veteran guard, quiet, strict, but fair. In a small interview room separated by a frosted glass panel, Jones looked at Leon through narrowed eyes. "I don't know who you are beyond former soldier, but you took down 3 iron fangs without a weapon." Leon looked at him, expression blank. "I survived." Jones sat down. He pulled a small piece of paper from his pocket. "Found this under the big guy's mattress. Looks like he was talking to someone on the outside, a guy named E.F. Elliot Foster." Jones tilted his head. "I don't know what's going on, but I know what filth smells like when it rises, and I hate being used as someone's pawn." "So do I," Leon replied softly. Jones placed the paper on the table. "I'm not here to help you, but if anything happens to you in this prison, I'll testify to everything I know. I swear it, on my honor." Leon gave a small nod. A thin bond had formed, not friendship, but the mutual understanding of men who'd both stood on the edge between life and death. A week later, in the visitation room, Jessica returned. She carried a thick file, her eyes heavy. "Leon, I've got good news and bad. Bad news first. They wiped out the Haven Enterprises accounts. Every record, gone. And one of my informants disappeared." Leon sighed. "The good?" "I found a living witness. Garrett Lang, Foster's former accountant. He left the system 2 years ago, but he kept backup records of payouts. Several entries show cash payments to the Iron Fangs." Leon looked up. "You contacted him?" "Yes, and he's terrified, but he agreed to talk, if I can guarantee his safety." Leon leaned back, eyes fixed on her. "We're getting close to the root. And that's when it gets most dangerous." They fell silent for a moment. Then Leon spoke, his voice low and steady. "I want a temporary release, under supervision, to help with the investigation. I've got a feeling. Foster's planning his next big move." Jessica looked surprised. "You think Foster's not done yet?" "With men like him, it doesn't end until they're in chains. Not everyone knows what it feels like to walk out of prison with hands still trembling from blood-soaked fights, while the mind must stay razor-sharp with every step. Leon Carter knew that feeling all too well. The day he was temporarily released to assist in the investigation was a day of glaring sunshine. The light streamed through the bulletproof glass of the armored vehicle, casting lines across his chiseled face. His eyes didn't blink, his hands rested lightly on his thighs, and his breathing was steady, like a marksman waiting for the trigger pull. Jessica sat beside him. She handed him a pair of sunglasses and a black coat. "We can't let anyone recognize you," she said. "Someone like Foster has eyes everywhere." Leon took the glasses and put them on. "I'm not good at hiding. I only know how to confront." "Confrontation isn't always the way to survive," Jessica replied, eyes fixed ahead. The SUV turned down a narrow alleyway, buried deep in an old neighborhood in the city's southern district. House number 18 was where Garrett Lang, Foster's former accountant, had been hiding from the world. 4 security cameras surrounded the house. The door had 3 locks, an electronic peephole. Jessica knocked in a rhythm of 312. It was the agreed signal. A moment later, the door creaked open a sliver. "I don't know anything," a shaky male voice called out. Jessica tilted her head slightly, speaking softly. "I'm the one you arranged to meet. And this is Leon Carter, the man you once thought was dead." Silence for a few seconds. Then the door swung fully open. Garrett Lang appeared, hair messy, dark circles under his eyes, emaciated compared to the photo Leon had once seen. Garrett stared at Leon as if seeing a ghost. I heard you were taken out." "Rumors travel faster than truth," Leon said calmly. Inside, the house resembled a hidden fortress. Stacks of documents everywhere. Wires, computers, cameras, transmitters. Garrett had once been a genius with numbers, but now he was a man living in fear. "I don't want any part of this anymore," Garrett mumbled, pouring himself a cold cup of coffee. "I just want to live." Leon leaned against the wall. "I used to want that too. But living without telling the truth is just surviving in someone else's shadow." Jessica opened her laptop, quickly laying out the plan. "We need your testimony, but not just words. We need evidence, documents, figures, videos, anything that proves Foster used you to manipulate the money flow and hire killers." Garrett swallowed hard. "Foster has files on me. If I speak, he'll expose everything. I laundered money, forged clients' signatures." Leon stepped forward, eyes tightening. "And he's used that to control you for years." "You don't understand," Garrett suddenly shouted. "I tried to come clean. I tried to tell my wife, the police, but the day after, my wife was in a car accident. No one ever found the driver." Leon fell silent. Jessica whispered, "Foster silences people any way he can." Garrett looked at them, his voice cracking. "You don't know what it's like to live every night in terror." Leon quietly said, "I do. I've lived that too, except it was with blood and shackles." 2 hours later, Garrett opened a safe in his bedroom. Inside were a hard drive, a stack of financial documents, and several scanned copies of shady contracts. "These are copies of unreported transactions. I kept them, just in case." Jessica immediately began backing up the data onto her private laptop, her focus razor sharp. Garrett stood up, fingers trembling. "I'll testify, but I want witness protection." Leon nodded. "We'll make sure of it." But what they didn't know was that 5 blocks away, a pair of eyes had been watching the laptop screen the entire time. A hacker group privately employed by Foster, tasked with monitoring key meetings, had already breached Garrett's security system 2 days earlier. On their screen, they could see Leon, Jessica, and Garreley. One of them picked up the phone. "Send a signal to the boss. The guest from hell has returned." Just 40 minutes later, as Leon and Jessica were leaving Garrett's house, a black pickup truck screeched into view, cutting them off. 3 masked men jumped out, carrying metal bats and tasers. Jessica screamed, "Ambush!" "Garrett, get down!" Without hesitation, Leon threw open the door and charged. A steel bat swung at him. He dodged at the last second, then slammed the car door back, knocking the first attacker aside. Another thug raised his taser, but Leon took him down before he could pull the trigger. 1 attacker remained. He had Garrett, gun pressed against his neck. "Drop your weapon, or I'll send him to join his wife." Leon froze. Jessica whispered, Don't let him win." Leon spoke softly. "You don't have to do this. We're unarmed. I'll let you walk. Just release Garrett." The man sneered. "You think Foster wants him alive? I'm not going anywhere." In that exact moment, a gunshot rang out. The man with the taser dropped, shot in the shoulder. Across the street, Officer Jones emerged, gun still raised, face expressionless. Leon turned to Jessica. "You called him to follow us?" Jessica gave a slight nod. "I don't believe in coincidences anymore." Garrett collapsed to his knees, panicked. He knows now." Leon helped him up. But this time, he showed his hand. They retreated to a safe house coordinated by Jessica, a long-abandoned building that used to be an old printing press. There, Garrett began recording his testimony. Word by word, he recounted his journey through Foster's network. The cash handoffs, the nameless contracts, the forgeries, and the list of secret offshore accounts. Jessica saved every file. Each word from Garrett was a bullet straight into Foster's empire. Leon stood silently, his hand clenched. "We need something that lands hardest," he said. "A direct punch to the face." Garrett hesitated, then opened a separate laptop. A hidden video clip played from an office camera. Foster stood before a planning board, speaking clearly. "Killing Carter isn't just clearing the path. It's a message. Anyone who stands against me disappears. The Iron Fangs will take care of the rest." Leon looked up. His eyes held not only fury, but the first glint of hope. "So it begins," he said. "No," Jessica corrected him. "Now. It truly begins." That night the city's sky was shrouded in heavy gray clouds. The early seasonal winds carried a chill that seeped into every corner. The city continued to live, to breathe, its lights flickering, but for Leon Carter the world had only one color: black. He stood on the rooftop of the abandoned building, gazing toward the horizon, where the tower named Foster Industries proudly pierced the sky like a gleaming sword. "A fortress of glass," he murmured, "but inside it's full of venomous snakes." Jessica appeared behind him, carrying a secure map, an electronic diagram of the ground floor, elevators, emergency exits, along with internal data collected by her team's hackers. "Are you sure?" she asked. "We could send the information to the press, force the police to act." Leon shook his head. "They'll shred all the evidence before a search warrant is signed. I have to go in, to get something even Garrett doesn't have." Jessica placed her hand on the map, pointing to the 34th floor. The vault, a secret records room accessible only to Foster and a few top executives. "If Foster keeps anything to control the entire system, it's here." Leon nodded. "I'll go in, alone. You'll need a level A access card. And I know who has one." 2 hours later, Leon appeared at a discreet bar located in the basement of a luxurious shopping complex. Inside were leather-covered chairs, dim amber lighting, and the scent of expensive whiskey mingling with classic jazz music. At the bar counter, a gaunt man in a gray suit and gold-rimmed glasses was sipping his drink. Walter Griggs, Vice President of Finance at Foster Industries, the holder of the Level A access card Leon needed. Leon approached, sitting one seat away. Griggs glanced at him, his face unfamiliar. "You are—" Leon smiled slightly. "Just a ghost from the past. Griggs, do you remember me?" Griggs froze. "Carter?" he stammered. How? Not dead." Leon smirked. "Seems Foster was a bit hasty." Griggs leaned in, whispering, "What do you want?" "Your access card." And silence. Griggs tried to stand, but Leon quickly placed his hand over his and slipped him a small note. A handwritten line. "I have a recording of Foster threatening to kill you if exposed." Griggs's face turned pale. Leon continued, "I know Foster forced you to authorize transfers to intermediary organizations. I know you were under surveillance. Help me, or become the next victim." After a moment, Griggs set down his glass, sighing. From his inner pocket, he pulled out a silver access card, placing it on the table. "You have 1 hour," Griggs said softly. "After that, the system will update, and if I disappear after tonight, know that I place my trust in you." Leon looked deeply into his eyes. "I won't let you disappear." 11:13 p.m. Foster Industries Tower. Leon donned a black tactical suit, fingerprint-resistant gloves, a mask, and special goggles, resembling a ghost emerging from an old battlefield. He silently infiltrated through the basement emergency exit, bypassing the camera system with a jamming device provided by Jessica's hacker. Every step was calculated like a seasoned operative. Griggs's access card allowed him to open the internal elevator, accessible only to Level A personnel. As the doors closed, he took a deep breath, his heartbeat slowing, reminiscent of pre-raid moments during his Delta Force days. 34th floor. The vault. The doors opened to a long glass-covered corridor. White-blue light emanating from recessed ceiling lights made everything seem to glow. At the end of the corridor was a thick door with an eye scanner, code pad, and fingerprint recognition. Leon retrieved a small tube from his pocket, containing a thin silicone layer with a fake fingerprint. It was Griggs's fingerprint, stolen when he touched his glass. He applied it to his fingertip and placed it on the scanner. Beep. Access granted. The door opened. A small room filled with file drawers, safes, and a mini-server. Leon quickly located the file series marked Legal Covert Ops. Each document is stamped confidential, detailing times, partner names, and transaction codes. In the third drawer, he paused. A file labeled Project Mercury, Operation Iron Fangs. He opened it. Names appeared. Garrett Lang, Iron Fangs, money transfers through Hong Kong, a call on the night Leon was arrested, the assassin team's travel itinerary, and finally, a handwritten letter from Foster to team leader Blaze. "Eliminate Carter as soon as possible. I'll handle everything else." Leon took out his phone, photographing each document, sending them to Jessica's encrypted server. Then he approached the safe, where Garrett had said Foster hid the ultimate weapon, a trap video. Password, Foster Industries founding date, 07-202-08. The safe opened, a portable hard drive and a photograph. Leon picked it up. It was a picture of him being beaten in the interrogation room years ago. Foster standing behind the camera, smiling. Leon's eyes darkened. "So, you were there, watching me be crushed." He placed the hard drive into his bag, closed the safe. But as he turned around, a voice echoed from the ceiling speaker. "Welcome back, Carter." Leon froze. "You thought I wouldn't predict your arrival? Griggs is quite useful, especially since I sent him to lure you out." The lights went out. The door locked. A white gas filled the room through the ventilation ducts, sleeping gas. Leon quickly pulled a gas mask from his jacket pocket, putting it on. But everything began to blur. He staggered. Outside the vault, Foster's special forces had set a trap. But what they didn't anticipate was, immediately after Leon sent the first file, Jessica had dispatched an emergency signal to an independent police investigation unit. While Foster prepared to capture Leon, a federal special forces team was en route to the Bill DG with an urgent search warrant. 22 minutes later, amidst the haze and alarm sirens, Leon was carried out, unconscious but still clutching the hard drive. Jessica rushed over, removing the mask from his face. "Leon! Can you hear me?" She shook him, her voice trembling. Leon opened his eyes, blurred, then gradually clearer. "Do we have it?" Jessica gripped his hand. "We have everything." 4 days after the break-in at floor 34, heavy rain poured down. Outside the federal courthouse of District 6, a long line of reporters stood under umbrellas, cameras crowding the entrance. Banners hung on the iron fence shouting, "Justice for Leon Carter!" Foster's empire, Species Arbi, ki corruption. We believe survivors. Leon sat in a private meeting room with his attorney. His hair still bore traces from the gas exposure, but his eyes were sharper and more determined than ever. Beside him were Jessica and federal civil attorney Olivia Grant, a black woman with tightly coiled hair and an unwavering gaze. "Foster has filed a countersuit," Olivia stated, her voice emotionless. "He's accusing you of trespassing, data theft, and threatening employees." Leon narrowed his eyes, smirking. Rats always squeal when their nest is overturned. Jessica placed the hard drive on the table. "This contains enough evidence to launch a federal investigation, and there's more." She opened her laptop, playing a hidden camera recording Leon had worn during his confrontation with Foster that night. "I did everything to protect what I built," Foster's voice echoed in the recording. "Carter is a threat. I ordered him eliminated. Is there a problem?" Olivia watched the screen intently. Each word from Foster cut through the very system he once proudly controlled. "This," she said slowly, "is indefensible." At Foster's office, the door burst open. Foster looked up, startled. Standing before him was Douglas Worth, chairman of Foster Industries board, alongside 3 senior executives. Douglas placed a folder on the desk, his voice icy. "We've received a federal court summons, and the recording. Have you nothing to say, Elliot?" Foster sprang up, waving his arms. "It's all fabricated." A setup. "What about the transfers to Iron Fangs via the Belize subsidiary?" Another member interjected. "From your email?" Silence. CFTC +1. Open Jurist +1. Foster turned away, breathing heavily, sweat forming on his brow. Douglas spoke deliberately. "We can't let you drag the entire corporation down. Effective immediately, you're suspended from all executive duties pending court resolution." "You have no right," Foster roared. "We do," Douglas replied, "by majority vote, and an emergency order from the Financial Crimes Division." Foster stood motionless. No words left. Case mine. Meanwhile, major news outlets CNN, the New York Times, and Reuters simultaneously reported on the dark secrets behind Foster Industries, featuring images of Leon exiting the hospital, supported by Jessica amidst a swarm of reporters. He was a veteran, wrongfully convicted, imprisoned, nearly killed, yet he rose again, a reporter narrated on live TV. Leon Carter isn't just a victim, he's a living testament to the resilience of justice. The hashtag # Justice for Leon quickly soared to the nation's top trend. 3 days later, a press conference was convened at a downtown hotel. Olivia Grant stood at the podium with Leon to her right and Jessica to her left. "On behalf of my client," Olivia announced, "we are officially filing charges against Elliot Foster for conspiracy to commit murder, bribery of officials, legal manipulation, and fabrication of evidence." The room erupted. "Based on recent evidence," she continued, "we're also requesting an emergency search warrant for 17 shell companies linked to Foster, both domestically and internationally." Leon stepped forward, gripping the microphone. "The day I was arrested, I was seen as a criminal, but I knew I was innocent. I didn't need anyone's belief, just a chance to prove it." He paused, eyes piercing the cameras. "That chance has come, and I won't let it slip away again, not just for me, but for everyone who's ever been trampled under the weight of power." Thunderous applause filled the room. Journalists raised their cameras in a frenzy. At Foster's private residence in his heavily guarded suburban mansion, tension hung thick. Foster stood by the window, clutching a glass of whiskey, eyes bloodshot. His phone vibrated, an unknown number. "Elliot Foster?" A deep, firm voice inquired. "Who is this?" "We're from the Federal Special Investigations Unit. Tomorrow morning you'll receive a summons for a hearing, and I suggest you prepare your legal counsel." Foster hurled the phone to the floor. The glass shattered. He knew. There was no escape. That night Leon lay on the bed in a modest apartment Jessica had temporarily rented for him. Rain pattered against the window. Federal Court, courtroom number 3. Judge Margaret Holloway, a silver-haired woman with a stern face, struck her gavel on the bench. The trial of citizen Elliot Foster, charged with conspiracy to commit murder, bribery, defamation, and obstruction of justice, is now officially in session. From the prosecution side, Olivia Grant stepped forward, her eyes sharp and cold. "Your Honor, today we will demonstrate before the court that the defendant, as a businessman, leader, and one who holds power, has exploited the system to eliminate those who dared oppose him, beginning with a man named Leon Carter." All eyes turned toward Leon. He sat in the front row wearing a simple gray suit, hands clasped together, silent, yet with an unyielding gaze. The defendant, Foster, sat behind the defense table, maintaining his usual cold demeanor. Beside him was a team of expensive lawyers, led by Derek Monroe, a veteran attorney, known for defending the elite. Monroe stood up, speaking confidently. "Your Honor, these accusations are products of resentment and emotion. My client is a model citizen, a reputable philanthropist, and a victim of a political witch hunt." Leon smirked. "Politics," he whispered. "This is my life." The trial lasted for hours. Olivia presented evidence of Foster transferring money to the Iron Fangs, records of secret meetings with underworld figures, audio recordings and internal emails, and Leon's testimony as he stood at the witness stand recounting each night he was hunted in prison, every wound, every stab he endured simply for refusing to bow down. The courtroom was silent. Only Leon's voice remained, slow and clear. "I once thought I would die in the dark. But I didn't. And today I stand here to say that the truth is stronger than any corporation." Foster rolled his eyes. But when Olivia played the audio recording, Foster's voice shouted in the dark, "I did everything. He was a threat. I handled him. What's the problem?" No one could deny it any longer. When it was Attorney Monroe's turn, he shifted strategies. "Your Honor, assuming the testimony is true, is there any evidence that Foster directly ordered the murder, or is it merely a complaint made in a moment of anger?" Olivia countered, "We will prove it with a special witness." The judge nodded. A side door opened. The entire courtroom gasped. A tall man wearing a dark blue shirt walked straight to the witness stand. Garrett Lang, a former senior executive of Foster, who had been missing for 8 months since the first scandal. Foster glared as if seeing a ghost from the past. Garrett bowed to the judge, then looked directly at Leon. "I was once Elliot Foster's right-hand man. I knew everything, and I was the one who transferred money to the Iron Fangs." Murmurs rose. Some reporters sat up, frantically taking notes. Garrett continued. "Foster knew well. He gave the orders. I once objected and was threatened with elimination. I ran away but couldn't escape the shame." He paused, tears streaming down his face. "Leon wasn't just harmed. He was hunted, wrongly judged. And I, the one who remained silent today, stand up with all that I have." Olivia presented a USB drive. "The evidence is here. Contents of internal meetings, transfer records, and an audio recording of a meeting where Foster clearly stated, 'If Carter is alive, we are at risk. Eliminate him. at all costs. Monroe sat silently, his face turning pale. Foster turned red, his hands gripping the chair tightly, veins bulging. The court recessed at noon for deliberation. Leon stood in the courthouse courtyard, the wind gently brushing his collar. Jessica approached, holding 2 cups of coffee. "Are you okay?" "I don't know." Leon took the cup. "I thought today would bring a sense of victory, but actually I just feel relieved." "That's okay," she said. "That's how justice works. It's not necessarily about winning or losing. It's about healing." They were silent for a moment. "I'm afraid." Leon spoke slowly. "Afraid that when it's all over, I won't know how to live on." Jessica looked at him, then smiled. "When justice arrives, don't let it be just an ending. Let it be a beginning." That afternoon, Judge Margaret Holloway returned to the courtroom. Based on testimony, physical evidence, and recorded confessions, the court declares, the defendant, Elliot Foster, has sufficient grounds to be prosecuted in the Supreme Court. While awaiting trial, the defendant is to be held without bail. The entire courtroom stood up. Foster shouted, "This is a trap, a setup. I built this city." 2 officers escorted him away, but this time no one looked back. Outside the courthouse, reporters surrounded Leon and Olivia. "Do you have any message to convey?" one asked. Leon looked into the camera. "I was once imprisoned for a crime I didn't commit. But today I stand here, not for revenge, but to tell those still fighting out there, don't give up. Justice is not a luxury. It's a right we all deserve." The crowd applauded. 3 weeks after the historic hearing. 3 weeks after the historic hearing, the name Leon Carter had become a symbol of justice, appearing in major news outlets from CNN to NPR. Numerous legal organizations, civil rights groups, and even law schools invited him to speak, sharing his story as a living testament to abuse of power and rebirth. But Leon did not choose the stage. He chose a quiet corner by the Hudson River, where the old stone bench he used to sit on every morning remained. With a cup of black coffee and a notebook, Leon began sketching a new plan: to establish a legal aid organization for those wrongfully convicted, something he had never imagined doing, until now. Jessica appeared, as usual, with a thick envelope in hand. "This is the file from the Jenkins case," she said, placing it on the wooden table. "The boy is only 17, charged with armed robbery, but there's no fingerprint evidence, no witnesses, and the neighborhood cameras lost signal at the time of the incident." Leon nodded, his eyes darkening. Each time he opened a file, it was like revisiting himself, a man once swallowed by the system. He spoke softly, "We start with this boy." But they didn't realize that real danger was coming from behind, from what remained after Foster's downfall. In a vacant office in Brooklyn, a man in worn business attire placed a folder on the table. "Here's the list of those who betrayed him," he said, his eyes filled with resentment. Before him, another man sat with his back turned, pointing at a clear photo of Leon. "Start with this one." Marcus Vail, the former head of Foster's security operations, once the liaison with the Iron Fangs gang. When Foster was arrested, he vanished into the shadows, and now he was beginning to regroup the remnants. He didn't want to save Foster. He wanted revenge for the empire that he and Foster had built together. The next day, Leon was washing his hands in the office restroom when he noticed a note tucked into the mirror's edge. "No one truly survives bringing Foster down. Remember the prison, Carter." He stood still. The fluorescent light above buzzed faintly. A chill ran down his spine. He pulled out his phone and called Jessica. "They're back," he said. They began tightening security, replacing all office locks, hiring after-hours surveillance services, and even enlisting Reuben, a former Delta Force comrade of Leon's, for security support. Reuben smirked. Back to the old ways, huh? Once again we faced the darkness. Leon didn't smile. He looked out the window where a man's silhouette stood amidst the crowd before disappearing. Number. This time, we don't kill to survive. We live to save others. But the situation escalated quickly. One evening, as Leon left the office, he found his car vandalized, the windows shattered, seats slashed, and on the dashboard was a knife, identical to the one he had carried in prison, embedded in the driver's seat. A neatly folded note was tucked under the knife. This time, we won't miss Delta. Leon reached out with trembling hands to grasp the knife. Memories flooded back. Nights in prison, the screams, blood on his hands, Blaze, the Iron Fang's leader, falling with a look of hatred. He turned to Reuben. They're not just targeting me. Reuben nodded, his voice grave. They're aiming at the very system you're rebuilding. The next morning, Leon held a private meeting with Jessica Rubin and 2 former FBI investigators they had just recruited. Leon laid out the information on the table. We have a list of 7 former high-ranking operatives of Foster who haven't been apprehended. 3 of them now work for Marcus Vale. He's not just pursuing personal vendettas. He's reorganizing a network that threatens justice. Jessica said, we need to expose everything to the press. Bring it all to light before they can act. Leon shook his head. Vale wants chaos. If we go public, he'll use the media as a weapon. We need to stay one step ahead. Hit his funding sources. Reuben smirked. Finally, the fun part begins. The investigation began quietly. Leon, no longer a man merely on the defensive, proactively searched for clandestine contracts Foster had signed with shell companies, places where Marcus Vale might be hiding funds and supplying underground operations. During a nighttime infiltration with Reuben, they broke into a warehouse in Queens. There they discovered a container filled with surveillance equipment, recording devices, and forged documents bearing the name of Leon's new legal aid organization. He's planning to use your name to trap the wrongfully accused, Reuben whispered. Leon clenched his fists. We can't let him do this. We can't let him turn the dreams of thousands into tools for darkness. But as they left the warehouse, a black SUV sped in to block their car. 4 men in black jumped out, weapons ready. Reuben shouted, "It's a trap!" Gunfire erupted. Leon and Reuben engaged in combat, utilizing their military training. Blood, clashing metal, and screams filled the night. Leon was grazed by a bullet on his shoulder, but he managed to take down the last assailant, and before the man lost consciousness, he uttered 2 words. Vale is coming. The wail of an ambulance pierced the quiet night in Queens as Reuben, clutching his wounded abdomen, supported Leon, whose shoulder was bleeding. They had narrowly escaped Vale's trap. The absence of police response confirmed Leon's suspicion. Vale had infiltrated law enforcement. At a private clinic owned by an old acquaintance, Dr. Ada Monroe stitched Leon's wound, her eyes filled with anger. "Keep this up and you'll bury yourself before toppling anyone," she scolded. Leon tightened the bandage on his shoulder, his gaze icy. "I can't stop Ada. Not when he's using my name to destroy those I'm trying to save." Reuben, lying on the adjacent bed, managed a weak smile. "At least this time, no one held a knife to your throat." Leon glanced at him. "Can't say the same for next time." The following morning, Jessica arrived with a hard drive that Reuben had retrieved from the container before the armed group attacked. She connected it to her laptop, revealing numerous encrypted folders. One file stood out. The New Carter Initiative. Jessica opened it. They were confronted with professional-looking slides introducing a non-profit legal organization founded by Leon Carter, aimed at reaching out to inmates without legal representation to assist in case reviews. However, at the bottom, all collected personal information will be transferred to VeilNet's database for risk assessment and potential coercion. Leon stood abruptly, his voice hoarse with fury. He's not just tarnishing my reputation. He's turning the vulnerable, people like I once was, into commodities. Jessica clenched her fists. Veil plans to use your name as a facade to legitimize his new empire. Further analysis of the data revealed a list of over 200 inmates previously approached by Veil's team. Among them, 47 were currently missing, with no contact with their families and absent from any public records. One name made Leon's blood run cold. Jalen Ortiz, 22 years old, had shared a cell with Leon in the past. He pushed his chair back, fists clenched. Jalen always said that if he got out, he'd find his mom, buy her a little house by the sea. Leon stared at Jalen's name on the screen, next to the status. Processed. High risk. Veil has eliminated them. Jessica grasped Leon's hand. We'll expose him, but we must be cautious. One misstep and our entire team could be wiped out before we reach the public. They devised a plan. Objective: obtain a full copy of the data from VeilNet's new headquarters, a shell company located in a high-rise in Manhattan. Rubin examined the electronic schematics, pointing to the 28th floor. This is the server room. An employee named Kamal Rawat, a network engineer, has agreed to assist us, but we have only a 30-minute window during the monthly maintenance, after 1 a.m. Leon nodded. I'll go in. Home. ICT frame +1 data breaches. +1, Jessica objected. Coatex Solar Ltd +6. Privacy leaks +6, DeLeonCarterFoundation.org +6. No. You're still injured. Leon turned to her, his eyes blazing. That's precisely why I must go. What Veil is doing was worse than anything Foster ever did. If I let him use my name to destroy innocent lives, then I don't deserve to have survived that prison. Jessica fell silent. She knew. Once Leon made up his mind, nothing could deter him. That night, Leon donned a black tactical suit, carrying a forged security badge and a decryption device. He was no longer a former inmate. He was a silent warrior, stepping into the heart of a new clandestine power rising in New York. Inside the server room, lights blinked incessantly, and the hum of cooling fans filled the air. Kamal, the insider engineer, waited nervously. There's a backup alarm. I can only unlock this floor, but if you access the data for more than 15 minutes, the system will lock down completely. Leon nodded. Give me 12 minutes. If I don't make it out, send this to Jessica. He handed Kamal a special USB drive containing a copy of the federal lawsuit they had prepared in case of failure. He swiftly navigated through the files. Lines of data appeared. Inmate names, medical records, psychological histories, family contacts, susceptibility to persuasion by the VeilNet system. A system that evaluated humans like livestock, with categories for discipline, training, and exploitation. Leon trembled. He copied everything onto the USB, but with Brooklyn Suburban Hospital. Room 416. Leon lay unconscious in bed, his gunshot wound treated, but the significant blood loss had left him in a dazed state. Beside him, Jessica sat motionless, gripping the USB drive as if Leon's soul resided within it. Rubin leaned against the wall, his gaze heavy. We have to release this before Veil can erase the evidence. Jessica lifted her head, her eyes reflecting a rare coldness. Not just release it, I'll hand it directly to the federal prosecutor, and tonight I'll live-stream the truth about Veil to the nation. Rubin frowned. You're challenging someone with hundreds of millions and a network within the government. Jessica smirked. I'm protecting Leon Carter's name from being used to legitimize crime. And if that means challenging the system, I'm ready. 8 PMA livestream titled, The Truth About Vail Nate Lies Signed in Blood, was broadcast on the channel of renowned independent journalist Malik Johnson, known for investigating abuses within the U.S. judicial system. Jessica appeared on screen, her face pale from lack of sleep, but her voice unwavering. I am Jessica Hart, former federal attorney. The documents I am about to release may lead to threats, attacks, or worse. But I will not remain silent. Here's the truth. The organization VailNet, under the guise of prison reform, is collecting, evaluating, and manipulating the destinies of hundreds of incarcerated individuals. Under the banner of standing with justice, they operate a human classification system to serve power and profit. She held up the USB drive to the camera. Inside are 207 detailed profiles with categories like obedience level, exploitation potential, and resistance risk. Some individuals on this list are now missing. She switched to the next slide, projected directly from the computer screen behind her. Vail's name appeared prominently. Below it, the logos of 3 major organizations, VailNet, Carter Initiative, and a new name that sent chills down viewers' spines, Federal Integrity Council. Malik raised an eyebrow. Isn't that... Jessica nodded. A federal agency was established to oversee legal system reforms. But they've received funding from Vail, nearly $4.2 million in the past 18 months, and one of the co-founders of this council... She paused, displaying an image of a man in a gray suit, silver hair, and piercing eyes. Senator Clark Westfield. The nation was in shock. The following morning, headlines dominated the news. VailNet, a system that evaluates inmates like livestock. Female attorney exposes secret ties between business and politics. Who is backing Marcus Vail? Meanwhile, in a luxury hotel room in D.C., Vail stood before a screen, gripping a glass of whiskey. Beside him stood a retired military officer, his gaze as cold as steel. "She's fired the first shot," Vail growled. "And you were foolish to let Carter live," the officer retorted. Vail turned. "We must initiate Phase 2. "I'll handle it," the officer nodded. "But this time no one must survive." 1 week later. Leon remained unconscious. Jessica was summoned to testify before the Judiciary Subcommittee. Just before entering the hearing room, a mysterious woman approached her, slipping an envelope into her hand. Inside was a handwritten note. "If you proceed, Carter will never wake up." She stood frozen for a moment. Then, taking a deep breath, Jessica entered the chamber, her face as resolute as steel. "I survived Foster. I'm not afraid of a cheap imitation like Vail." At the same time in the hospital, Leon slowly opened his eyes. The overhead light flickered. The first sound he heard was the nurse's voice. "He's awake." "Call Ms. Hart," Leon whispered hoarsely. Jessica." Police were stationed on every floor. But what they didn't know, a mercenary, once part of a private special forces unit funded by Vail, had infiltrated through the basement. He approached Leon's hospital room. Brooklyn Suburban Hospital, 3:08 a.m. Leon Carter opened his eyes. The harsh white light pierced his retinas like sharp blades. His head spun, and his chest felt as heavy as stone. But then, memories flooded back. The break-in, the gunshot, the USB drive, Jessica. He turned his head and saw a nurse stepping out. Her heels clicked away. Then a shadow appeared. The man entered silent, cold and metal. His eyes held no hatred, only emptiness, like someone programmed to kill. Leon knew he wasn't here to talk. The man locked the door behind him. A dagger slid from his sleeve, gleaming steel. Leon struggled to sit up. The bandage on his abdomen bled through, and the wound in his leg burned. Yet his gaze was unwavering. The assassin approached the bed without a word, and just as the blade rose, Leon twisted, kicking his uninjured leg into the man's knee. A grunt escaped him as the knife clattered to the floor. They grappled. Despite his weakness, Leon fought like a cornered wolf. He swiped at the man's hand, yanked his hair, threw backward punches, and even used the IV pole as a weapon. Blood spilled, staining the white sheets. The assassin staggered but didn't fall. He drew a silenced pistol. Then, bang! The door burst open. Jessica stormed in with federal agents and armed police. Federal Bureau of Investigation. 2 shots rang out. One from the assassin's hand, grazing Leon's shoulder. One from an agent's gun, piercing the assassin's forehead. Blood splattered. The assassin collapsed like a felled tree. A few hours later, Don Leon Carter's name dominated the news. Assassination plot exposed. Key witness in VeilNet scandal survives attempted murder. FBI launches. Official investigation into VeilNet Federal Integrity Council nexus. Jessica Hart, the woman who brought a corrupt empire to its knees. In Washington, D.C., Senator Clark Westfield was scheduled for testimony. However, he was found dead in his office the next day, an apparent suicide. There was no suicide note, only a thick file detailing financial transactions, the prison reform profiling plan, and a list of those eliminated. At the bottom of the file, a handwritten note read, "Leon Carter was the first anomaly. He will also be the last." 3 months later, at a small park along the Hudson River, once a peaceful spot for Leon before his life unraveled, it now witnessed his rebirth. Jessica approached, handing him a hot coffee. "It's been 3 months since the trial. Vail was sentenced to 52 years, no parole. His network is completely dismantled." Leon nodded. "But there are still hundreds like me. No justice has been served for them." Jessica smiled softly. "That's why you started the Carter Foundation. That name now carries a different meaning." Leon gazed at the river, where sunlight kissed the water's surface. "I once thought I was just a victim, but it turns out sometimes those pushed to the edge are the ones who can change the system." Jessica gently touched his shoulder. "And I once believed justice was confined to the law. Now I understand, it begins with the courage of one who stands up, even when no one stands with them." Leon smiled, a genuine smile, the first in years. He had lost nearly everything: honor, freedom, time. But in return, he gained something that Foster, Vail, or any powerful figure couldn't buy: the truth. And when the truth is exposed, even late, it possesses the power to bury empires built on the blood of innocent people. The story of Leon Carter is a compelling narrative that delves into themes of betrayal, systemic corruption, and the relentless pursuit of justice. Leon, once a decorated Delta Force commander, finds himself ensnared by the very system he served, illustrating the profound impact of institutional betrayal. His journey is marked by resilience, as he confronts both physical and moral challenges, underscoring the importance of personal integrity and the courage to stand against wrongdoing. The narrative also highlights the critical role of allies in the fight for justice. Jessica Hart's unwavering support and strategic actions are pivotal in exposing the nefarious activities of organizations like VeilNet and the Federal Integrity Council. Her commitment to truth, even at great personal risk, exemplifies the power of individual courage in effecting systemic change. Ultimately, the story serves as a powerful reminder that justice often requires sacrifice and that the pursuit of truth can dismantle even the most entrenched systems of power. Leon Carter's transformation from a victim of the system to an agent of change underscores the enduring relevance of standing up for what is right, regardless of the obstacles.